Did Micah just take a huge shot at Tank, or was this misinterpreted? So we already have some people who are confused about what this is about, which is okay. From the 682, Micah basically said we have no interior defensive tackle, and he's right. He told Jerry we need a super nasty 330-pound defensive tackle. True. However, that's not what we're talking about. I'm going to take you to cut number 11. And this all starts with when we were at the Super Bowl, so a week and a half or so ago, and Tank said, I'm paraphrasing, and it was like, hey, what happened? He's like, oh, maybe we were burnt out. We were tired. It's a long season, blah, blah, blah. And this is Micah on with Stephen A. Smith, essentially responding to the comments of you were burnt out at the end of the season.
Don't get me wrong. Yes, I agree that teams play us like the Super Bowl. We are the Dallas Cowboys. But in the end, that's not a good enough reason or excuse to say that publicly. If you said it to someone else, you know what I'm saying, one-on-one, you know what I'm saying, cameras off, sure, be my guest. But when I feel like once that regular season ends and they get in the playoff, you're supposed to get rejuvenated. Like, this is a whole new me, whole new you. Like, we need to get ready. And that's part of that culture stuff where I was talking about, where I want to dive into the players that we got to change. Like, it should never, you should never go into a game like I'm tired, like I'm ready to go home. Because that's exactly what's going to happen, and it did happen. I'm coming to the game every week like, man, I got 4 more weeks left. I don't know what y'all got, but I got 4 more weeks left. Like, that's part of the culture and identity that I just feel like we're missing. Like, that's just something like I don't agree with at all. Like, regular season, all right, yeah, I'm tired, like I'm wore out. But as soon as playoffs hit, knowing how limited and how hard it is to win in playoff game, I would never say I'm tired or I feel fatigued, because that's my job to not feel that way.
I'm just going to tell you my prediction about what happens from here. Either Micah or DeMarcus Lawrence said that's not what they meant, and they were misinterpreted. That's why they don't like the media, because the media is always trying to stir things up and everything like that. That's my prediction for what are the next steps in this.
Here's the next thing. If any of us, not only us, but media in general, it could be G-Bag Nation, it could be Sean and RJ, whoever it is, other people in the media that aren't up here, they're going to call us complete liars if we say, sounds like DeMarcus and Micah don't like each other. To me, when you do that, when you say we need a change, and he's specifically talking about DeMarcus Lawrence's attitude, that doesn't sound like those guys are best buddies. Like, one of Mike Zimmer's first things that he's going to have to do is DeMarcus Lawrence not to go kill Micah Parsons. Because if he just specifically said, we have to change the culture and I don't want people like that on my team, he's specifically saying, I don't want DeMarcus Lawrence on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, he'll say he didn't, and the Cowboys will say I'm lying. Like, I understand how the game works. But, like, that's what he just said.
And that's frustrating, Mike, because this is, what would Jimmy do in this situation?
Hopefully get them in the room together and be like,
I don't think anybody ever quit on him in the playoffs, so he wouldn't have to deal with this.
I think, well, and don't forget also, Jimmy had to build that team first. And I think Jimmy would say, you know what? That guy's right. See you later. And I think that's where when you talk about the culture starts at the top, and there has to be some sort of fear within it and walking on eggshells about it. I know Kevin Money gets involved in this, and how much cap space and all that really becomes a huge factor for it. But if it was discussed and it was, hey man, he was one of those soft guys as we were trying to prepare for a playoff.
Sure.
We don't need him anymore. Now, a lot of people will fight for DeMarcus Lawrence and, hey, keep that guy around. He does all these things. And a lot of people will say, well, are we getting the right production out of him? And that's where if you're making decisions about this team and you're hearing this guy who's your star, your probably future star, say this, is it because he's just trying to point fingers at other people, or you really don't have a competitive enough team to go out there and win a championship? What you saw on that playoff game was that you don't have a competitive enough team. They gave up. So I think you really have to do a long look in your mirror and figure out which guys need to stay around and which guys don't, because something that was told to us was the culture in that locker room was as good as it's ever been. And as soon as that game was over, it fell apart.
They're all pointing fingers at this point. And
Let
what
me
they're
ask you
doing.
a quick question, just real quick, Mike. Is that the way you interpreted this? As Micah pointing the finger back at DeMarcus Lawrence and being like, you shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before we go on.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I think that in a way, yes, that he's pointing the finger at DeMarcus Lawrence, but I feel like everybody's pointing the finger at themselves going, it wasn't my fault. That's also as bad.
Except for CeeDee Lamb, who's like, I have to be better.
Or Dak, I do honestly feel
And
like.
Dak is always going to say the right
says
thing.
the professional thing. Like, I just look at a lot of these things like the Chiefs just won the championship. Who's getting interviewed more for the playoffs? The Cowboys are. This is also the major issue. I was watching ESPN this morning and Bart Scott is like, God, these Cowboys love talking. Like, that's what these guys love doing. He's like, Micah, shut up.
Yeah.
And stop doing all of these podcasts and everything and play football. If you want to be considered one of the best, you have to be the best. You have to play the best also in the best moments. You also have to lead a team.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to be, he mentioned Ray Lewis, and he said he played with a bunch of great players and stuff like that. I don't know all of Bart Scott's career and all of his teammates, but like it's getting to the point now where this is just ugly. Like this loss was more than just a loss. And I'm starting to figure out how do they overcome this as an organization? Because I don't think they want to.
And this is where I start to think about this a lot, is the imperfect messenger. Because I totally hear what Mike is saying. And when he talks about changing the culture, and like, I'm here for all of that. This is where I start to wonder about, is this the right message from an imperfect messenger? Because just my follow-up questions would be, all right, Micah, are you showing up to all the things and doing your part all the time? Are you showing up to all the other not game obligations? Are you giving your all in practice every day because people follow your example, or that sets the tone for an amazing week? I can't remember who it was we were talking to at the Super Bowl. They were like, oh yeah, some of these weeks of practice, I think it was Michael Irvin. He was like, some of these weeks of practice, you would be like, oh my God, we're going to destroy whoever we're playing because everybody in practice this week is unbelievable and on point. And so that would just be my question, is if you're talking about the culture, and I think he's right about that, I just want to make sure that I know that you're setting the example in practice and giving it all you got, or you're showing up to the other thing.
And that's why, again, if I'm going to, let's just say it's Will McClay. All right. Let's say it's Will McClay. That's the one that's the GM. Does that sound reasonable?
I mean,
Steven
truly
Will,
he is. He doesn't have it by name, but he's the general manager of the team.
When it comes to, let's say those two guys are the GM together in this instance, all right? Those guys have to have the finger on the pulse more than anybody else in the entire place, because they got to know what the coach is doing, what he's trying to get, the message he's trying to get across, and how those players are responding to that. And so that's where they have to be observing just what you said. And if they are looking at it and saying, yeah, he's doing all the things that the great leader needs to be doing, and he's pointing a finger and saying this guy's not, or there are other guys that aren't, then we need to pick and ride with that guy if they believe that he is.
Okay.
That's what, Kevin, again, that's they're the ones running that. They're the ones observing it. If he's not, then they got to find a replacement for him. Or they got to make sure that he is doing those next step leadership things.
And this is where I think the Cowboys run into a ginormous problem. And I will tell you, I see some people, for example, who disagree. From the 972, that's not what I heard from Micah. He generalized that we don't need players like that. Wasn't referring to Tank. I hear what you're saying, because he didn't say.
Who was it then?
He didn't say Tank's name, but when he used the phrasing that Tank used, I understand. This is where I run into the issue about changing the culture then. I think Micah has a lot of valid points. So let's just say, let's go on either side of it, right? Let's say that DeMarcus Lawrence is the problem. I'm not saying that at all, but let's say he was. Okay, do you believe in the Cowboys to do the legwork or make the hard cuts and say, we got to post June 1st him right now. We'll take a hit. We'll save some money on the salary cap, and we'll regroup either in the draft or free agency to try to figure it out. I do not. If you think
and
it's,
that culture needs to change too.
yes, oh my God, I so
That
agree
approach
with that.
and mentality.
And same thing with Micah. Let's just say, I'm not saying he is, but if for some reason you found out Micah was the problem, okay, do you have what it takes to put your best player out or one of your best players out in the market and be like, he's available now because he doesn't fit our culture? Because I don't think they do. So if we're changing culture, the issue is you can change that part of the culture all you like, but there's a certain part of the culture that I know people have been talking about for 30 years that I just don't think they have the work ethic or the stomach or whatever to cut out a piece that doesn't fit in their culture if that player's too good.
This is tough, Corey. I'm just going to leave it at this, and I want you to work off of it. I feel like this is very combustible. I know they just got Mike Zimmer, a new defensive coordinator,
and he's going to be a hard ass on all those players.
This whole team right now, I don't know how they overcome all of this. Won the loss, but now they just keep adding on to it.
Well, and Mike, this is,
would you want to play with a guy who just said that about you? Because I guarantee you DeMarcus Lawrence took it as a personal shot.
Probably not.
Whether the audience did or didn't, I don't care.
The other conversation that's about to happen is Dave Campos said this, right? That he felt that Dan Quinn was a little too buddy-buddy with the players. A little too right next to you, I'm your guy kind of guy. Mike Zimmer is not that guy. Mike Zimmer is like, hey, how do I challenge you to go do something better? How do I challenge you? And if you're not going to accept, that's the thing. Are you willing to accept that challenge and be coached? We just talked about this last week. Are you willing to be coached to go to that next level? If he's trying to motivate you in a way that pisses you off, are you going to take it as I'm quitting and taking my ball and going home? Or are you like, I'm going to go show that MF for what I have to do today? And so that's another, Mike, you're talking about combustible. That's another thing that's about to enter that locker room is a guy that's about to really challenge them and not be buddy-buddy with them. And if you don't end up doing what you're supposed to be doing, benched. You're just going to go, you know what, fine, sit over there then. That's where I'll put you. That's where you're going to be. You want to play? You want to be great? Then get out here and let's do it. So that's where this whole combustible part of it, Mike, is even going to add something new to the mix. And I really do hope that Zimmer pulls the best out of all these guys. That he is able to kind of push the buttons of the ones that want to be there and want to go to that next place. And then the ones that don't, the ones that, whether it's DeMarcus or Kevin, whether it's Micah, that isn't really putting in all the work that it takes to be there, they fall off, they go somewhere else.
And by the way, I know we're talking about these two. I don't mean to make it sound like these are the only two choices that you have.
And these are your two best players on defense, to be honest.
Or at least
I guess you could look at Diggs maybe.
Yeah,
Is that,
but they're pretty high up.
Yeah.
At least two like the top four. If you don't, but you know what I would love to see? Like, and maybe they just hash it out or they text each other and they're like, hey, it got twisted, blah, blah, blah. But if they really meant it, I would love for them to just away from cameras. I don't need to know about it. I would love for them to already have had a conversation. It was like, did you say this? What the hell? Yeah, I did, because that's what I think. Hey, this is what I think that you need to step up your game. And then it's two grown-ass men. They're just like, you know what? I hear you. I don't necessarily agree, or maybe I do agree, and I'll do better. Or I don't agree, but I'll show you the effort.
And then Oklahoma drill it.
I mean,
go out there and just square up one time with each other.
I do
right
kind
in
of
front
think
of the whole
you need
team.
that sometimes.
Wolfpack gets to watch it all happen, and then one wolf goes, you know what? You're the new wolf in town.
I would say that this offseason took another hard shot because Micah loves talking.
He does.
And I have no clue what he thought was going to go on the Stephen A. Smith show. He already, in a way, if you go back to the Super Bowl one, he didn't take shots at Dak, but because Dak is so tough to defend at this point, then when he asked him questions about Dak, he was like, yeah, I can't defend that. That's not good either. Like, I know that you can have your own thoughts. As he said, you can have your own thoughts individually and talk to us individually. Don't say it in front of the camera.
He said that.
But he's saying stuff in front of the camera too.
And Kevin, to the stuff that was discussed right out of the gate with the players in front of him and around him, we'll discuss more of those at 1 o'clock today in the C block, as I have brought that topic back to the stage.
We're the KNC masterpiece.
Because we had a one-on-one talk that let us know where we stand on things, and we Oklahoma drilled it.
Oh, my goodness.
That's how we do it up here at the station.
That does actually sound kind of right.